Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be diving into more Linux commands, specifically grep, df, du and chmod. These commands are highly useful whenever you are working with file folder systems within Linux itself. The grep command is a command which is utilized in order for you, the user, to search for a specific pattern of string that would appear within specific files. This syntax that is usually followed is something like this. When you type grep followed by the term followed by the file itself. In this case, let's say I have fruits.txt. Let's say what's the content of fruits.txt. When you hit enter, you would see a list of fruits. So let's say if the term apple is present within this list. So when you do so, and when you hit specify the text file, when you hit enter, you would see that the specific line where the term apple is present is highlighted in red. This command, so to summarize in short, it basically searches for that specific term within this specified file and basically prints the matching lines. This can also work out for, let's say, hello.txt. Let's see if it has a search term called hello. You can see that this term hello appears in this sentence which is present within the hello.txt. So the grep command simply searches for these specific patterns and therefore highlights them and is presented back to them. Furthermore, the grep command can also be further refined in its process of searching by using search insensitivity tags, which is a -i followed by the term. Let's say the term apple again in fruits.txt. When you hit enter, irrespective of the case, apple basically has been detected and that particular term would be highlighted in red. And as you can see, within fruits.txt there are different terms, right, such as apple, pineapple and custard apple and so on. So anywhere this term apple is present, irrespective of the case, it would basically look for it within the list and basically highlights the same. Similarly, you can also specifically search for texts within the directory. Let's say I have this file directory structure and I would like to search for the text hi within all these text files within demo. So for the purposes of doing that, I would basically perform a recursive search. Let's say I will type grep -r followed by the search term hi and then specifying the directory, and when I hit enter, we can see that the term hi basically has been found within the text this. So this basically searches for the term hi within all these text files. You can also display the number, i.e. the line number where the text basically has been found or has been found matching. So let's say we type grep -n followed by the term, let's say apple again. This time let's search for this apple and let's say fruits.txt, and when I hit enter, you can see that under line number 5 and 11, custard apple and pineapple has been detected. Similarly, you can also search for entire words with the help of the -w tag. You can search grep -w. Let's say we can look for the term Unix appearing in linux.txt. You can see that The word Unix has been highlighted in this large paragraph structure which has been stored within linux.txt. We can also perform the process of invert search. Now invert search basically looks for the lines where this specific pattern is not there. So let's say we are interested in looking for the term mango. Let's say we are not interested in looking for the term mango, so we are basically listing out where on which of these lines the term mango is not present. And if you enter, you will be shown the entire list except for the term mango. So the grep command is highly versatile and basically allows you to search for specific patterns within files and directories, and it's an essential tool for Linux users as well as developer and administrators whenever you are analyzing log files. For example, let's say if you have a log file which has errors, and at a point where the system basically shows errors, and that basically is stored into a .log file, and you would like to analyze what the errors are, you can simply perform something that would look something like this, where you write error followed by the full path where the log files would exist. In this case I do not have this kind of a file, but that's how it would go. The next command that we'll be talking about is the disk free command, or the df command. This command is used for the process of displaying the disk space, the free disk space available. So when you type df and when you hit enter, it basically shows you the amount of space which is available, and it is calculated, and you can see for each of the mounted file systems. This usually is used whenever you want to analyze the space usage within your root file systems. However, in this case you can see it's not pretty clear what the data is, so you can also convert this into a human readable format by the help of the -h tag. And when you hit enter, you can see that the available amount of size is now far more easily readable, like 3.9 gigabytes, and so structures are made available. We can also specifically display file system types with the help of df-t. If you have, let's say if you have typed df-t, let's say if I type this, it will basically show you the external space which is available, which has been mounted. You can simplify this view. Okay, with the help of the hashtag as well, but I guess in this case this only works uniquely with the help of df-h. You can also display inodes information as well. The inode basically is a file system structure which is available as well. So if you type df-i, you can again show the amount of node space which is occupied by each. Similarly, each of the file space can also be depicted. Let's say df fruits.txt, you can also see the same data associated with it, so like how much space is being consumed. So that kind of information is also available. So where does this practically come into use? Well, the df command is useful whenever you are monitoring disk usages, especially when you are running out of critical space in large file systems, especially whenever your role is a system administrator and you are asked to manage large amounts of data. Therefore you have to keep an eye out for the disk space, whether it is running out or not. We can also specially also perform the same action in order for understanding how much space has been consumed by each directory. Basically type new directory. You can also see that the amount of space which has been used is so and so, and available is so and so. So yeah, this is highly interesting, and it is a vital tool which is useful whenever you want to keep track of the disk space which is being consumed by your file systems, and if you want to reuse and restructure the entire um, file system in regards to deleting certain unwanted files, this is where it comes into play. Similar to the df command is the du command, which is used to display the disk space usage. So practically it basically displays you the same information in a different way. Let's say you want to find out how much disk space is being consumed by, let's say, this particular directory. So you basically will type as du hyphen forward slash followed by the name of the directory, and when you hit enter, it would basically display the disk usage of that specific directory. In this case, du basically shows that this specific directory uses 4 KB of disk space, and yeah, so that's usually the structure how it follows. You can also display this in a human readable format if this is not pretty it is pretty vague. So you basically combine the -h in this regards, and you can see that it's 4 KB kilobytes in size. Yeah, and as well as you can also summarize your entire disk usage with the help of du. So let's type du -sh followed by the specific directory. Let's say we would like to know about documents. Let's see how much that is consuming. So if you type documents, hit enter, you can see that it's basically consuming around about 12 kilobytes in size. You can also display specific depths. Depths basically mean like if you want to limit the depth of the directories which you want to display, i.e. when you, let's say, when you do, this is my file structure, and if you have a large file system, let's say, okay, let us move into demo, and let's create a new file and get a new directory called sub, and you hit this, and let's say we want to move files such as file1.txt, let's type file2.txt into sub, and let's create another file, and let's move my file txt, new file.txt, and log file.txt into sub directory. And let's say you want to make a new okay, sorry, if you want to write a new file, new directory, let's say, into sub, basically move back, level up, and let's move combine.txt as well as new file txt into yeah. So let us try that again. So now if you go back and level up to your present working directory, and when you try tree, you can see there is a huge structure available to you. And when you use du, you can also specify the depth of the directory structure that is being consumed. So let's say if I type du, and let's say I want to only showcase the directory structure till depth, I suppose 1, and when you hit enter, it basically showcases you the data of the space consumed per the kilobytes which are occupied by each of the directories at level 1, but data regards to subs and subdir are not visible. So you can again refine this when modify the max depth search to 2. and when you do so, the data associated with the other subdirectories are also showcased with their paths being specified next to them. So in a way, it's used for the calculation of disk usage. You can also exclude certain files as well in the process of calculating the size of the files. So for that, you basically use something called exclude. So let's say you type du, then double hyphen exclude, and let's say we are excluding all the text files, all the files which end with an extension txt are to be ignored. So going back to our structure, let's say we are gonna not calculate the file size structure of the files located within the sub directory. So you basically have to define or write the entire directory structure. Let's say in this case demo. When you hit enter, it would basically exclude these txt files which are located within the sub directories as well. So you would show it will show up like this, where the data associated with the text files in our previous case were shown with their full paths, but in this case that's not the way that is being done so anymore once you use the exclude command. So it's pretty nifty when you use these commands in combination when you are working with huge file structures and we are asked to manage data associated with multiplicity of text files and other related files, where you might be asked to calculate how much size is occupied in different scenarios and so on. So yeah, so du command is highly incredible. It allows you to monitor and manage the disk usage, and therefore helps you to identify which directories are consuming the most space, and therefore you can take up the required action whenever it is necessary. Similarly, you can also use the du command in a different way, such that you can look up directories that take up the most space. To do so, you can basically write it as du-sh and star symbol. So this special character is used to specify or list out all the files which are taking up the most space. In this case, you can see that it has been listed out. It's like it's not much, but for the purposes of this demonstration, the data has been displayed with this kilobytes which are being occupied by each of these subdirectories and so forth and so on. You can also monitor the disk usage over time by performing these checks as the data grows over time, and therefore you can plan your storage requirements. This usually comes into play whenever you have a hosted project on some other, let's say Amazon or Google Cloud. So this is where this kind of structure usually comes into play. So yeah, it is pretty useful and highly versatile tool which can allow you to track disk usages, manage the storage space effectively, and yeah, this is pretty nifty. Another command that we will be diving into is a command called the chmod command. The chmod command is a command that can be used for changing the file permissions. The file permissions are associated with, let's say, when you perform ls-l, you can basically see these characters which are linked with each of these directories as well as files. The D basically stands for directory. In this case, if it is in .sh file or a .txt file or a .py file, this would not exist, and there you would see a hyphenation. While the permission associated with the user, other users which are in the group, as well as other users which do not have access which have access indirectly to your LAN or WAN, they also have certain permissions to read, write and execute, and these users are basically categorized or are given these permissions in the form of triplets. So you can see that the first triplet of information of RWX, which basically stands for read, write and execute, basically refers to the privileges of the first user, that is you, while as the second set basically refers to the permissions of the users in the same group, while the third triplet basically refers to the permissions of file characteristic privileges associated with other users which have access indirectly. This involves modification. So for example, if you are given a role of an administrator in a large firm and certain new users need to be accommodated into the workplace environment where certain files might be related to a need to know basis or related to specific projects where certain data does not leak out. Under that scenario, you will have to manage datasets with the help of chmod. Moreover, all these permissions are also representation can also be done in the form of an octal value, where read permissions have an octal value of 4 and the other two, which is write and execute, have a value of 2 and 2. So when you write this, let's say if you want to change the file permissions of, let's say you want to remove all file permissions associated with bash hello.sh, so you would type something like chmod 000 and then the bash file itself, and when you hit enter and when you do so, you see that I have removed all permissions. So here you can see that the octal notations that I have used are 000. So what it means is that you are removing all file permissions at once. However, you can modify this. As I had mentioned, the read octal notation can be represented as 4, while that of the other permissions, read, write and execute, basically write and execute basically are 2 and 2, and when you combine or added them together you get 7. And when you hit enter, and let's say you type ls-l, you can see that I have granted the user the read, write and execute permissions, but that's not the same for the users on the group as well as others. So yeah, if you have access, if you have your privileges which match this category or this, it satisfies this condition, it would appear as green. The chmod is highly useful as you have to understand the file permission and the structures, and you want to determine who can read and write or execute. So it is basically represented as sets of 3, which is the owner, the group and others. So you have to be careful when you are using these commands, especially in a workplace environment. So yeah, you can also modify or change these permissions symbolically, where you have to basically mention, or where you can also change certain other attributes. Let's say when you type chmod, you are granting all permissions, let's say the user, all the permissions to execute. In this case I have already given so for bash procedure, so let's say we want to change it to group. The users in the group can execute this particular .sh file, and when you hit enter and you type ls, you will see that that executable permission has been given for this specific .sh file, and so on and so forth. You can also modify this same. Let's say I want to remove this same privilege for the group. You basically change the plus to a minus, and when you hit enter, let's see what has happened. You will see that the same permission has now been removed. The same structure also works for the users on which do not have direct access. When you do let's say you are providing let's say write and execute permission for this particular script, when you perform, you can see that the read and execute permissions have been given, and so on. Sometimes you can also modify this in a way that you want to give all users in the group as well as others who are outside the network. You can basically modify it not as specifying U, G or O, but directly as specifying E. And when you hit enter, type it, you can see that it has been modified. In a practical setting, it is crucial that you understand how you manage your file system, especially in context of the accessibility as well as security. Chmod basically allows you to appropriate these permissions and therefore control who have the ability to read, modify or execute these files. Moreover, if you have written certain scripts, you can basically ensure that these scripts can only be executed by you by performing chmod. In this case, I would like to only give the primary user the read, write and execute permissions, but I would like to deprive these privileges for everybody else. So I will execute something like this. So you can see that only you, the user, who's the primary user or the administrator, or those who share the same network within the same machine, they only can read, write and execute. So yeah, so securing scripts is very crucial whenever you are working in a large network, so you can follow the same. Let's say if you want to share a file with others but you don't want them to modify that particular let's say list, or let's say I want to share a text file. Let's say I want to modify the privileges associated with the linux.txt. So I would type something like 664 and let's say that the text file that I'm interested in. And when I do so, and when I hit enter, you can see that when this particular set of file is can only be modified by you, the primary user, and the other users, even if they get access to it, they can only read. So yeah, this is where I leave you. I hope you understood a lot with regards to these commands, and yeah, until next time, bye.